One time I asked a young activist, a young man who laid in front of an illegal dog truck that filled with dogs on its way to a slaughterhouse. He had to lay in front of the truck to stop the truck so other activists can jump on the truck to rescue the dogs from the truck. So I asked him why he was so brave to do that, knowing that he can he can he could easily be injured or thrown into jail. And he told me that he lost his dog to the meat trade, and he's doing this to save other dogs. In a way, he needed to do this to redeem his guilt because he felt that he didn't take good care of his dog.
Welcome to the Cause Compass podcast, where we shine a light on inspiring stories of impact from local nonprofits by interviewing the dedicated individuals driving change within these organizations. Each episode will be joined by a nonprofit leader who will share their organization's unique journey, the challenges they faced, and ways you can join their cause. I'm your host, Joe Kratz, and I'm here to help you gain insights into the nonprofit world and inspire you to take action. Today, we're excited to feature the Duo Duo Project, a nonprofit focused on ending the brutal dog and cat eating practices in China. They operate a number of programs in China focused on animal care, community education, and advocacy. They not only rescue animals in danger of becoming victims of the dog and cat meat trade, but try to change the minds of communities in the dog and cat eating regions of China by hosting events for people to connect with companion animals. In this episode, we're joined by Andrea Gung, the executive director, and Martha Lackritz-Peltier, board member and pro bono counsel. Andrea Gung, a Chinese-American, graduated from the National Taiwan University and UT Dallas, has lived in the United States for over 40 years. She has cared about the underprivileged and animals since childhood. After selling her successful import business of 25 years in 2012, she pursued her passion to give back to society, using her background to unite the East and West. Andrea's hope for a better world that works together for the betterment of people and animals resulted in her founding the Duo Duo Project in 2013. Duo Duo is also the name of the dog that she adopted from China that helped start the movement. Martha is an attorney specializing in nonprofit tax-exempt law and international grant-making. Currently based in France, she's lived in the California Bay Area and in Vietnam, where she was a Fulbright scholar. She's a graduate of Brown University and Bolt Hall Berkeley School of Law. Martha's day job is general counsel at TechSoup Global, an NGO headquartered in San Francisco that serves nonprofits around the world. In her free time, she provides pro bono advice to various animal welfare organizations. She's also Duo Duo's adoptive mom. Let's dive in and learn more about the Duo Duo Project's journey and how you can support their mission. Andrea, Martha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
So thrilled to be here. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Yeah. So we can go ahead and dive right in. In your own words, can you describe what the Duo Duo Project is, its mission, and how you work to accomplish the mission?
Yeah, so the Duo Duo Project is a US-based charity that partners with communities in China and really around the world to end the practice of eating dog and cat meat. I think as many of your listeners may know, in many parts of Asia, and including primarily rural regions of China, South Korea, and Vietnam, for example, there is a tradition of eating dog and cat meat. Now, I say tradition, but it's not as old as some people might think. There is a misconception that eating dog and cat meat is either due to sort of poverty or to long-standing cultural traditions, and actually neither of those is quite right. There's a superstition in certain Asian countries that eating dog or cat meat on certain days of the year can bring good luck, similar to eating shark fin or illegal tiger meat trade, where that stem from this belief that eating certain animals brings virility or good luck. And others may sometimes argue again that this is a practice that dates back many centuries, closely linked to historical and cultural traditions. But again, I want to emphasize that is also false. By way of example, the infamous Yulin dog meat festival has really only been around for the last few decades. So with that context in mind, Duo Duo was founded in 2013 to put an end to this practice. And what distinguishes the organization from other typical animal welfare groups is that our primary operations are not about just rescuing or buying animals from the trade and finding new homes for them. It's part of what we do, But really, we really believe that if we want to actually end the practice, then buying dogs as a means of rescuing them actually only fuels that trade further. And so instead, we approach the issue through education, through advocacy, and through community-based programs that really instill a love of respect, a sense of love and respect of animals in rural communities where they might not be traditionally seen as pets, say, while also helping to create alternate ways to earn a livelihood for people in rural communities who are part of that trade of, say, a dog and cat meat trade out of necessity, right? So we're really approaching it on the ground with how do we work with communities to change the hearts and minds of those communities and to start seeing those animals a little bit differently and to change the way that they think and live and how they sort of interact with animals and particularly with dogs and cats.
Sure. No, I think that's a great overview right there. And, one of the things that I want to touch on too, because it's a very interesting backstory, but, the Duo Duo project has a unique name origin. Could you explain how the Duo Duo project got its name?
Yeah, I first met a dog in 2012 when she was about to sold back to a butcher after local vet students practiced some unnecessary um, surgical procedures on her. And I decided to pay the vet school and buy her for $10. And I named her Duo Duo, which means in Chinese abundant. So I wanted to give her an abundance of love. And she also inspired me to start a nonprofit to end this cruel practice of eating dogs and cats.
We often joke that we share custody,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's actually I ended up getting involved with Dua Dua because, well, partly Andrea had the idea for the organization. She came to the law firm where I was, and we ended up talking, and she was looking for some initial advice, and then we ended up personally getting to know each other, and she was talking about her dog, and this was in 2012, and then I ended up adopting her and got involved in many other ways. But yeah, but so I normally I split my time between the States and France, and so Dua also splits her time between Andrea and myself.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, certainly living up to her namesake there, having an abundant life, two caring mothers, and great families to be a part of. I'm sure that's great. And so it seems like kind of Duo Duo convinced you to join on board, Martha. Is that right?
Yeah, she was really, I mean, honestly, Andrea is a real force of nature. I mean, when you meet her, it's funny. My husband, who also volunteers for the organization, it's like anybody, if you end up talking to Andrea for a little bit, you are sold on the idea of the cause of everything. I mean, she's so genuine. She's so passionate about this cause. It's hard not for that not to be infectious. Now, it didn't hurt that there was this adorable, mischievous little dog that became the mascot, which also stole all of our hearts. So I think that was certainly a part of it as well.
For sure. Yeah, that's great. And then one of the things you mentioned too is that you guys started in 2013. It's been almost a decade or more than a decade now, I think, since the Duo Duo project started. How has the organization evolved since its founding in 2013? And are there any major milestones that you can highlight that you've accomplished along the way?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that, Andrea, because this is indeed our 10th anniversary. And honestly, no one is more surprised than I am by just how much the organization has accomplished. One of the stories Andrea likes to tell is, well, because I told her that when I first met her, I thought, so I lived in Vietnam actually in my 20s for 4 years. So I was very much exposed to this practice at the time and also horrified. But honestly, in certain areas of Asia, it is very ingrained as sort of like a practice that certain people do. Still, no, not an entire community does it, but there will be sort of a group of men in a village that will be very attached to this practice, say. And I just remember thinking, like, this woman is so idealistic and this is wonderful and I want to support her, but she's never gonna, this is just impossible. Like, this is a task that is going to take lifetimes. And it's remarkable, frankly, what has happened over the past 10 years. I think just pulling out a few major accomplishments, as you mentioned, milestones. We have donors and volunteers around the world, which, I don't think was necessarily anticipated that within the first few years, we would have people from Australia heavily engaged and the UK and of course, in parts of China and other and Asian Americans who felt like, oh gosh, stories from children who grew up in China or in Vietnam and said, gosh, I remember seeing this and it was so sad to me to see this happening. So I think the sort of breadth of engagement globally has been really interesting, really from the get-go. We also have 5 strong teams in China on the ground, which I think is a major accomplishment in and of itself. And those are in areas where dog and cat eating is really predominant. That is Yulin, Guangzhou, Mudanjian, Meizhou, and Dandong. And in 2016, we opened our first shelter in Yulin. I mentioned earlier that that is the site of the annual dog meat festival that does actually tends to get quite a bit of press the past few years because they annually slaughter over 10,000 dogs that are largely stolen. So it isn't actually a legal trade, but which is one of the sort of horrors of it is that these are animals that are often stolen from homes and then crammed into small trucks and carried across the country for this festival, for example. Our second shelter reopened in 2017 in Mudanjiang. And I think having that presence there is already an amazing accomplishment because of the it's very hard to establish an NGO already in China because of the politics of the situation and because you have to prove that you're not sort of threatening or denigrating the government or the culture. So you really have to, which fits with what we're trying to achieve, right? Because it's not about us trying to say you're doing something bad. It's about us saying let's rethink the way that you treat animals, that we interact with animals, and how can we work together on that. Which is part of the reason these shelters are not just about rescuing the dogs, but it's about bringing in local volunteers. It's about paying kids who don't have any revenue or come from very poor families to come in and spend time with the animals, right? So I think opening those shelters has been a huge milestone and a lot of hard work. Do Project has also been approved as a legal entity by the government of Mudanjiang in 2020, which is another huge accomplishment. And we built a youth compassion center in Mudanjiang in 2021, which is again the idea is it's not it is an area with a lot of low income families, and so it's a great way for us to bring additional sources of revenue while also building a sense of what it means to be around dogs and to see puppies and spend time with cats and animals and starting to grow that bond so that future generations think about it very differently.
Sure. No, yeah, you definitely listed a lot there in terms of what the Duo project has accomplished over the last 10 years. And, speaking from my experience just working with small businesses, I know that not many small businesses survive after the first few years. And for nonprofits, I think that survival rate is typically lower. But not only have you survived, but you've thrived setting up, different programs in China, not even in the US, right? And so you've managed to establish yourself as a real global player. And I think that's incredibly significant and a testament to the both of you and to everyone who volunteers and helps out. I think that's amazing. And, you touched on some of the programs that you offer there, from the compassion events to the shelters, but could you talk a little bit more in depth about some of the different programs that you offer at the Duo project?
Yeah, we have 3 major programs or 3 major initiatives. The first one is we create animal care task forces. We brought in a vet training program to teach local vets with the latest spay and neuter techniques. We promote low cost and easily accessible spay and neuter services. And we also promote adoption over buying dogs and cats, which is a fairly new concept for the local communities. Then we also teach local activists on adoption logistics, like foster home recruitment and home visit, just like what the animal rescues do here. So we hope we can get more funding to expand this program, the adoption program, in 2023. And the second initiative is education and community outreach. We have been very focusing on educational program because we think that's the most effective way to end this practice, changing hearts and minds, especially on the younger generation. So the programs including summer animal welfare camps um, and community outreach and some activities like animal painting contest. The In the dog and eating cities, most of them are in a rural area, and they are kind of poor with limited resources. So painting has become their most popular after school class because compared to piano, um, ballet, dancing classes, painting is much cheaper. So a lot of kids are involved in the painting classes. So we decided to organize a lot of painting contests. We believe have children painting over with a theme or topic of animals for children, that for them to learn how to appreciate animals through painting. We have actually organized many successful painting contests in those dog eating regions. In fact, we had a very successful one in Yulin. We had we didn't expect to have. We wanted to have 500 kids, and we want to give them a little thermal cup or something fancy. But then we had 5,000 people, 5,000 kids signed up. So I told our team in Yulin, okay, just give them a pen, nothing fancy now, 5,000, and we had to borrow the huge auditorium to put on this context. We're very happy about the turnout. So that's second initiative we really like to do, and the third one is we call advocacy. We actually hired local top-notch lawyers to train our activists how to use their limited laws to sue the illegal activities, or after they stop the truck, how they can deal with local government to get ownership, transfer the ownership of those dogs rescued from the truck to the local shelters. So before they met us, they had no way of, just a bunch of young, compassionate young people. They had no legal knowledge. So we provided them with, we hired some really good lawyers to train them. We have workshops and seminars to train. So that's our third initiative, is legal actions and advocacy.
I keep going back to this in my mind, the painting. It's amazing that you were able to come up with this activity that intersects with the culture and what you're also trying to accomplish and move forward so well. The fact that you had 5,000 turn out when you were just expecting 500, I think that's a pretty good sign that you're having a significant impact, and that's great. So, one of the other things that you mentioned there was your animal welfare summer camps. And, you listed a number of other community outreach initiatives that you have. How have these programs changed the public perception of the dog and cat meat trade?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see this because I mean, one thing to note is that a lot of these, because the organization has been focused in more rural areas, because it is important to note that as in more urban areas, it's much less common to see dog or cat meat eating, and there are the vast majority of the population actually are do not approve of it and own pets very commonly, right? And so when you look at the more rural communities, oftentimes a dog, for example, may be kept really for the utilitarian purpose of being a guardian, right? And so dogs are often not trained to actually be gentle or kind, or they're fearful themselves because they've been strays or they've been abused essentially. And so a lot of children, their only interactions with dogs are around dogs that are scary, that might bite them, that they're told to sort of stay away from, or that are in the street and they're dirty and they're dangerous. And so some of them have truly never been exposed to a friendly dog that's been loved and that wants to love back, which many of us, that's how we know dogs, right? And so for a lot of these kids being in these these summer programs and camps where they can engage with dogs and see how loving a dog can be, it totally transforms their perception of what a dog is. A dog suddenly isn't just this vicious guard animal. It's actually someone that can love me and I can love back. And I think it can be remarkable for a lot of us who grew up in communities where it's very common to have a dog, to realize that could be the first time in a child or a teenager's or even an adult's life that they see that kind of relationship. And so we really have seen that transformative kind of interaction with children, local kids, to play with the dogs, to have that up close encounter, to be able to experience that very particular kind of love. And it is something that we're seeing just a massive difference between the younger generations and the older generations. It's something that it doesn't take long to fall in love with a dog. I mean, even people that aren't so-called dog people, I think. And so just having that exposure and that different context, you see it immediately. And I know that because Andrea travels consistently to these areas. She's constantly there. She's constantly checking in with the communities and the people and the activists and the volunteers, and has a really good sense of like what is valued and what is valuable to them, and what works and what doesn't, right? And I think and Andrea can speak more articulately about this, but I know a lot of the conversations she's had with kids that come out just saying like, my gosh, I would never want to hurt a dog. Like I would never, it just totally changes one's perception. So I think it's been enormously successful and heartwarming.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, kind of changing that perception. You're right. It's not that hard to fall in love with a dog. I think just kind of like showing that other side to a family pet and companion is a great way to kind of change minds. So that's great. And you mentioned too, Andrea. You mentioned about advocacy, how that is really important. How do you collaborate with local activists, shelters, government authorities, and other organizations in China to help you achieve your mission?
Like I mentioned, we really provide the legal services that much needed for local activists. They really, before they met us, they really didn't know how to maneuver even their legal system. And they don't even know what kind of laws. They don't have, China doesn't have animal welfare law, but there are other laws they can use. So we hired a lawyer to help those build up his team whenever there's a legal issues, we send out our team to sue whoever we need to sue. And luckily, the lawyer fee is so much cheaper compared to here. So $1 can go a long way in China. That's the point, especially in the region that eat dogs and cats because they're rural and kind of low income. So yeah, we that's a lot of things we can provide very effectively, very cost effective.
Sure. Yeah, that paints a great picture right there too. The lower cost of lawyers in China, it's unheard of, right? For folks in the
Yeah.
US who are familiar with, how much lawyers can cost. Yeah, that's a big difference. And you're right, the dollar can go much further in that case,
Yes.
which is great.
Yeah.
And you mentioned too setting up adoption campaigns. That's no small feat. I know that is something even in the U.S. that people still struggle with. The adopt don't shop saying is big here, but still people buy. And one of the most important things, and I'm sure you're aware, is the welfare of the animals that are being adopted out. And so, I'm curious, how does the Duo Duo project ensure kind of the long-term well-being of the animals it rescues post-adoption?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there are a few different ways to look at this. One is most of those animals we do try to rehome within China for a number of reasons. One is because we want to support the kind of ecosystem for as Andrea was describing of finding a home for them and not necessarily getting them on a plane over to the States because there might be somebody who's really interested in China in a rescue dog. Always happy to find a home wherever we can, but to the extent that we can nourish that local ecosystem of creating shelters, providing support for those shelters, whether it's in the form of dog food or medical support or training, right? I think a lot of the sort of compassion centers and the shelters and the spaces that were created are also focused on how do you train a dog, how do you care for a dog, because in many cases it may be a first time dog owning family. So again, it goes into this kind of education piece of like it's not just about a dog is great. Now, what do you do once you own a dog, and how do we learn to love that dog and take care of it and build a safe environment for the dog? The other thing that we've been doing that Andrea touched on earlier is bringing in vets. And so a lot of support for bringing in American vets, training local vets in China with less invasive surgical procedures, which has the sort of double effect of, on the one hand, it creates a better, safer environment for the dogs in that region. It also creates opportunities for spay and neuter programs so that we're already reducing the population of stray dogs. So that has sort of a win-win effect there as well. We do train local activists as well to organize adoption and foster programs and training programs. And then we're also looking to bring in a complete animal care program to China now that we're hoping to sort of see the end of COVID. It's a program that we've implemented here. So it's a lot of this sort of long-term on the ground. We're not going anywhere. We're not just here for the big dog meat festival or when all the news trucks come in. But we're really there for the long term and have been since we were founded, was how do we start building up that ecosystem, that new sense of sort of culture and love and sort of supporting it for the long term in that way, I think is really what it takes.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's really apparent just in how you've been describing your work, right? You're an end-to-end solution, not solution, but you're kind of attacking the root of the problem all the way up to the leaves of the problem. You've thought out, how can we change mindsets, and also how can we continue to educate once some mindsets are maybe changed, which is incredibly hard, I'm sure. But I think it's amazing work, and you've already mentioned how some of the public perception is beginning to change just in some of your anecdotes and experiences there too. One of the other things that I'm really curious about too is, can each of you share a personal experience or encounter that has had like a profound impact on you during your time with the Duo project? I'm sure there's a lot over the last 10 years.
I can share one first. One time I asked a young activist, a young man who laid in front of a truck, an illegal dog truck that filled with dogs on its way to a slaughterhouse. He had to lay in front of the truck to stop the truck so other activists can jump on the truck to rescue the dogs from the truck. So I asked him why he was so brave to do that, knowing that he can he can he could easily be injured or thrown into jail. And he told me that he lost his dog to the meat trade, and he's doing this to save other dogs. In a way, he needed to do this to redeem his guilt because he felt that he didn't take good care of his dog. And his sadness and anger shown on his face totally really touched me.
I mean, I don't know if I can top that. I think, Andrea has so many amazing stories from coming back from China, and I can say my husband, he's a videographer, actually, went with Andrea on a couple of trips, and was a real eye-opening experience for him as well, to record, to do interviews, to meet with the kids, to take photographs of a lot of the school events, and I mean, those are just it's a fascinating mix of just hope, right? You see tons of the photos with tons of school children in Yulin and holding up their pictures and loving to interact with people from America. And my husband is French too, so it was like they wanted to learn about Paris and France, and those interactions I think were really heartwarming and touching, in a way that's a little bit less depressing than some of the images that we see.
For sure. No, it seems like, you know, regardless of people's familiarity with this topic, it seems you can make connections and find people who are interested to learn more. And I think that's really important. And it just kind of shows the reach that you're able to have. And I think, too, one of the things that I'm sure people listening would like to know is, what is the most valuable kind of support your organization can receive right now from individuals?
Of course, the funding is the most important thing. Always is the most important thing. So we need donations and the connections right now. We have quite a few strategically designed campaigns that we'd like to start in China soon. Now the country is opening up. If we have more funding, we can move much faster to our goal. We also need good connections to kind of we can reach out to ask for help to bringing vets to China, like we mentioned, the programs we do. And we also need support from shelters or animal control team here to help us set up the logistics and then the foster system that we mentioned earlier. So the donation and the connections are very much in need now. Well, the connections I forgot to mention. Since we're in Sunnyvale, in the center of the Bay Area, I would really love to have local young professional that work for high tech like Google, Facebook, and Apple, um, bring me in, for example, to do a show and tell um, meetup in their companies and bring in more young professional to the cause. And so the connection that we can break into high tech, since we're right here, and I would really grateful if any young high tech professional can reach out to me and get us connected with those high tech companies.
What is the best way for folks to connect with you or to stay up to date with what you're working on?
Well, we really love people to sign up for our e-news because then they will be informed about our campaigns and a lot of things. So if they can go to our website to sign up with our e-news, that will be good. It'd be a really great way to stay connected. And we are actually about to roll out an ambassador program. So if I encourage people, if you really care about this movement, want to help us end this terrible dog and cat eating practice, sign up and to become our ambassador. It will help us with us in a big way to spread the message, raise awareness, and help us make connections. So please sign up through our website to give us your email, and we can reach out to you.
Sure. That sounds like the ambassador program's a great way for people to help raise awareness as well of the issues that you're tackling, which is great. Okay. Do you also have any need for any kind of volunteers, or do you have any other events that you'd like to highlight here?
Yeah, actually, you mentioned not just me and Martha have brought Dodo this far. We have really good team of volunteers. We have good copywriter, graphic designer, marketing people. We have a lot of good volunteers, but we also always need more volunteers. So again, sign up through our website if you're interested in being volunteers. And we are going to have our annual gala in September, on September 24th, in South Bay. So I would love to have any dog lover to come to our gala to get to know us.
Sure. Well, all right. That's about all the time we have for today. It was really great to learn more about the Duo project and the work that they're doing to end the dog and cat meat trade in China. Andrea, Martha, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Cause Compass podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the Duo project and how you can get involved, please visit their website and follow them on social media. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Cause Compass newsletter and podcast to discover more local nonprofits making a difference.